Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, March 14th episode of the Baking Bets podcast. And today's show is going to be my best bet for 15 of the 16 Thursday March Madness NCAA tournament games. The only one that I won't have a pick for today is the one involving Alabama because we don't know what their opponent is. My pick for that game will be given out on tomorrow's episode. If you want my picks for the first four play-in games, as well as my entire bracket, then check out Monday's episode where I break down those. So once again, this is Tuesday's episode. I'm going to be giving out my best bet for 15 of the 16 Thursday NCAA tournament games. March Madness is here. What a time to be alive. Let's not waste any time because we got a lot of picks to get through. So we're going to go in chronological order. Or at least what I believe to be chronological order, which means we're going to start with West Virginia and Maryland, the first game of the round of 64. Great game, a great 8-9 game. And I'm going to take West Virginia here, -2 against the Terps. So before we dive into evaluating teams based on their performances here and based on their statistics and analytics this year, first thing I look at is the conference they come from, and I'm not a believer in the Big Ten. I believe the Big Ten, in my opinion, might be the worst power conference. If not, it's probably the Big Ten and the ACC. Meanwhile, I think the Big 12 was the strongest conference in college basketball this year. So as a result, before we even get into the numbers, I'm favoring West Virginia over Maryland. But the big thing with Maryland that we got to keep in mind is how they played away from their home court this season. They're terrible on the road. They're 16-1 at their home court, just 2-9 on the road this season. So that is obviously going to make a big difference now that they're in the tournament. They're obviously going to be away from their home. Now they're not going to be at somebody else's home court, but they are going to be playing at a neutral site court. Their effective field goal percentage drops 5.9% away from their home court, and their average scoring margin drops from +13 at home to +1.1 on the road. And also West Virginia, you're going to hear me cite a stat over and over again that I love, especially when it comes to NCAA tournament games, especially when it's close games involving a close spread. And that's extra scoring chances per game. That takes into consideration things like offensive rebounding, turnovers, opponent turnovers, things like that. How many extra scoring chances a team creates per game? West Virginia thrives in that category, 42nd in the country in extra scoring chances per game, averaging +3.3. I think that's going to be the difference maker in this one. I favor them already because of the Big 12. I set the line at probably at around -3. I don't think that there's a massive edge here, but with the line at -2, and it is still, as of recording this, 6:40 a.m. on Tuesday morning. It is still at -2. So give me West Virginia -2 against Maryland for my first bet of the round of 64. Moving on to what's a pretty interesting game here, and that's between Furman and Virginia. You're going to see a lot of people back Furman. They're going to be a popular pick to actually upset Virginia, move on to the next round. Now, I have Virginia winning in my bracket. But in terms of the spread, I actually will take Furman here +5.5 because there's a key thing here, and this is I actually think they do have a stylistic advantage here because Virginia struggles with their perimeter defense. You cannot pound the rock inside against Virginia, but what you can do is shoot the three ball against them, and that's exactly what Furman does, and they do it very well. 13th in the country in three-point shot rate, 46.4% of their shots coming from three-point land. Virginia is 178th in opponent three-point field goal percentage. And 34.9% of the points scored against Virginia comes from beyond the arc, which ranks 315th in the country. Furman also 43rd in turnovers, 98th in rebounding. I think they can keep it close. I think Virginia's coached well enough here that they're going to pull it off. Daisy either loves or hates this pick as she's just screaming bloody murder at me right now. Yeah, I think Furman can keep it close. I like the 5.5. I'd probably set Virginia as maybe a 4-point favorite. 4.5-point favorite, so I think we're getting about a point of value here with Furman. So I'll take Furman +5.5. Still sticking with Virginia in my bracket, though. If you're curious if I've updated that, which I have updated my bracket in a couple spots, and I'll probably get to that here in a little bit when I get to the relevant games. So second game in the round of 64, I'll take Furman +5.5. Moving on is SEC against Mountain West game. And I will take Missouri plus 115 in this spot. Like I said earlier, before I even look at the numbers of teams, I look at the conference they come from, and I will be fading the Mountain West. I talked about this when filling out my bracket yesterday, but they are terrible in the NCAA tournament. I believe the number is 1-11 in the opening round of the Mountain West is in the last 12 NCAA tournament appearances. My strategy is to fade the Mountain West this season. There's one team I'm picking to win in the first round. There we go. Daisy finally decided to jump up. What do you think of the Missouri game, Days? Come on, you got the microphone. What do you think? And all of a sudden, she's speechless. Yeah, so Utah State is a Mountain West team. I'm done with the Mountain West. I've fallen for the trap in the past. And Missouri is also a very good shooting team. Actually, extremely good shooting team. 17th in the country in effective field goal percentage. Extra scoring chances per game. That stat I just talked about in the last game. Huge advantage for Missouri. 51st at plus 2.8. Utah State is 240th at minus 1.2. Missouri also does a great job forcing turnovers. That's probably why they rank so high in extra scoring chances. 5th in the country in opponent turnovers per possession. So you got a great shooting team that can force turnovers, which sounds to me like they can beat a pretty shitty Mountain West team. Not that Utah State was shitty during the regular season, but just shitty just because they're from the Mountain West. Now, I got Missouri on the money line at plus 115. As of recording this line has moved down to minus 105, so I got a pretty good line on it. But if you can get Missouri at any type of underdog number, I love them in this spot. Probably even a pick 'em, I love them in this spot. I just have no desire for falling for the Mountain West trap. If the Mountain West teams want to play good this NCAA tournament and prove me wrong, then I'll reevaluate for next year. But I'm willing to go down with the ship if that happens after what they've done to me the past few years. So give me Missouri, the Tigers, plus 115 against Utah State. Moving on for it is a 1v16 matchup, and I will be taking, it's a massive spread. I actually think we'll see what this other spreads are for the unknown 1v16 matches, but of the two that are known, this is the bigger spread. It is Kansas. It is Howard the Bison, and I will take Kansas minus 20.5 here. I'm not afraid to lay this big number on Kansas. A big thing that you got to know about Howard, which is going to absolutely screw them in this game, is that they can't hang on to the ball. They are 335th in the country in turnovers per possession. They cough it up on 22.2% of their possessions. That's in the bottom 10 in the country, and that's while playing in the MEAC. So if you're going to play in the MEAC and have ranked 335th in the country in turnovers per possession, they might not get a shot off against Kansas. They just might turn it over every single possession. I think this game is going to get ugly. They can't defend low. 207th in opponent 2-point field goal percentage. I think Kansas is just going to completely bully them down low and force a shit ton of turnovers. I predict Howard to get 22 turnovers in this game. If there's a prop bet out there for over/under prop bets or turnovers for Howard, take the over. So that's my handicap for that game. Pretty straightforward. Howard's not gonna be able to hang on to the ball. Give me Kansas minus 20.5. Moving on to money line upset pick here. Oh, by the way, right now would be chronological order would be when Alabama plays. We'll find out who they take on. They take on, I believe it is the winner of Fairleigh Dickinson and Texas Southern. It might not be. No, it's no. They take on the winner of Texas A&M Corpus Christi and the other 16 seed there, which we'll find out tonight. If you want my pick for that game, listen/watch to yesterday's episode. 12v5 matchup here, and would you look at that? We got another Mountain West team we can fade. Charleston plus 180. I tweeted this pick out as soon as the bracket reveal was done. I already got one 12v5 matchup, and this is it right here. Fade the Mountain West. I'm going to stick to this strategy, except for one game later, which I'll get to. But San Diego State, also not a great shooting team, 206th in the country in effective field goal percentage. That is not good. Charleston, very good at shooting. They're also very good at my favorite stat, extra scoring chances per game. 7th in the entire country in extra scoring chances per game, plus 5.9. If they don't turn the ball over, they grab a ton of offensive rebounds. They can get hot from three. I think they get the job done and upset San Diego State. Once again, we are fading the Mountain West. That's my strategy. Give me Charleston on the money line plus 180. We got a 2v15 matchup next. It is the Ivy League Princeton Tigers taking on the Arizona Wildcats. And I will take the 14 points with Princeton in this spot. I don't have the actual record, the ATS record of Ivy League schools in the tournament, but I feel like they're always feisty. I feel like once every 4 years they win. The other years they do really well. So I'll take the 14.5 points. I think this spread's a little bit too high. I think they can get it done on the perimeter against Arizona, which is Arizona's weakness. Arizona, their forwards strong. Their guards leave a little bit to be desired. So I think Princeton can take advantage of them in that area. They lean towards a three-point shot, and Arizona ranks 99th in three-point field goal percentage, an opponent three-point field goal percentage. They rank the top 5 in opponent two-point field goal percentage. So you can kind of get this team on the perimeter a little bit. 33.7% of the points scored against Arizona come from three-point shot. That ranks 286 in the country. Princeton is also very solid defensively. They don't turn the ball over. With these Ivy League champion schools, they're going to be schools that hang onto the ball. They're going to be schools that play smart basketball. They're just schools that are pretty tough to blow out, especially if they get hot from three, and this Princeton team certainly can. And Arizona does turn the ball over a ton, which is my biggest concern for Arizona in the tournament. And Princeton doesn't. So maybe that'll cause this game to get closer than what a lot of people think too. I actually set the spread at 12.5. I think we got 2 points of value here, which might be kind of crazy to say, but I set it at 12.5. My book that I got at the plus 14.5, it's down to plus 14. Let me see if there's still 14.5s out there as of this morning. I would still play it at plus 14 regardless, obviously, especially if I like it at 12.5. 14.5s are still available out there. They are starting to switch down to 14 though. So if you want 14.5, I would bet on this game sooner rather than later. Even at FanDuel, it's down to 13.5. So I would bet this one sooner rather than later. Looks like it's moving in the direction of Princeton. Moving on. Is this another 8-9? I don't know. It's going to be a close one, though. It's going to be a good one. Arkansas, Illinois. I'll take Arkansas, the Razorbacks, minus 2.5 here. Once again, we are fading a Big Ten school, but I still like Arkansas regardless here. This isn't... I actually am fading the Big Ten in a lot of games, but most of the time I do like the matchup for their opponents regardless of the conference matchup here. So Arkansas, there was a reason why I backed them to win the SEC tournament. It didn't work out for me. But this is a team that has no holes. They're strong offensively. They're very good defensively. Inside the top 100 in shooting, 32nd defensive efficiency, 83rd in extra scoring chances per game. They're going to be tough out for any team in this tournament. Illinois is a three-point shooting team, but Arkansas can defend the three really well, 26th in opponent three-point field goal percentage. Arkansas is a two-point shooting team, and 54.7% of the points scored against Illinois come from two-point range. So that ranks 309th in the country. I think Arkansas can pound the rock down low. If you remember last year, I made the bet that if Arkansas makes the Final Four, I would get an Arkansas tattoo. That was one game away from actually hitting. I think Duke finally beat them in the Elite Eight, I believe it was. So tables have turned. How the turns have tabled. I'm now backing Arkansas. I will have a tattoo bet for this year as well. Have not decided what team that's going to be. We'll see. I'll decide sometime later this week and make the announcement. So there you go. Arkansas minus 2.5 against Illinois for that one. Next up, it is a pick'em between Auburn and Iowa. And once again, I'm fading the Big Ten. I don't know if I've taken any Big Ten team to win in the first round. But I'll take Auburn here. I don't think people give Auburn enough credit for how good they are defensively this season. 58th in defensive efficiency, 12th in opponent effective field goal percentage. Iowa 252nd and 308th in those stats, so they're just terrible defensively. And it's not like they played in a conference that has a ton of good offensive teams. They play in the Big Ten, which is generally a better defensive team than offensive team. Their defense or conference, generally known for defense in that conference as opposed to offense for the most part. And Iowa's numbers are still absolutely terrible defensively. Now, if they had a top-tier offense, you could kind of convince me to get behind the Hawkeyes, but they don't. Outside the top 100 in effective field goal percentage, so they're not even good there. Fran McCaffrey sucks in the tournament. He's never even made a Sweet 16. Can't trust him at all. I'll take Auburn at a pick'em. Let me see the current odds for this game, see if the line has moved at all. No, it's actually moved against me. There's actually a -105 available out there for Auburn, so you can actually get a better line there. I like Auburn regardless, no matter what the line you get it at, unless it moves drastically. I don't expect it will. So give me Auburn -110 against Iowa. I fell behind here on changing the graphics. Let me type up the next one here. The next one is a game between Oral Roberts and Duke, which I believe is another 12v5 matchup. Oral Roberts is probably going to be a popular team for people to back, and for good reason. And I will take them to cover against Duke. I do have them winning in my bracket. Not going to be brave enough to take their money line here in this spot, but I will take them with a +6.5 points. Duke's shooting issues, I don't think enough people realize. I think people think they're a better shooting team than what they are. 157th in effective field goal percentage, not good. Outside the top 150. And now they take on the 7th best shooting team in the country in Oral Roberts. Also, Duke is a 2-point shooting team. What's the strength of Oral Roberts' defense? Their interior defense. They are 38th in opponent 2-point field goal percentage. Oral Roberts, also the best team in the country at not turning the ball over. First in turnovers per possession, which is a very important stat when it comes to hanging with the top teams in college basketball. If you can shoot the lights out and not turn it over, you're going to be there from start to finish. Duke also, that's another weakness for them. 189th in turnovers per possession. Oral Roberts didn't lose a conference game all season. Obviously, their conference isn't exactly a strong one, but still, it's a pretty strong indication here. 6.5 points. I think Oral Roberts can at the very least give Duke a little bit of a scare with the fact of how strong how strong the shooting is and how they don't turn the ball over. Once again, the best team in the country at not turning the ball over. So give me Oral Roberts +6.5 against Duke. Next up is, I'll let you know right now, it is a game that I have switched in my bracket. It is a 15 versus 2 game. It is Texas against Colgate. I originally had Colgate winning in the bracket. I have switched that. I now have Texas winning this matchup, but I will stick with Colgate when it comes to covering the spread. So give me Colgate +14. I think Texas will win this game. I think they're too talented not to. They have too many athletes. They're good in every single aspect of the game. They don't have any weak points whatsoever. And for, I think, a 2 seed to get upset by a 15 seed, I think they need some weak points that their opponent can exploit. And I just don't know if they have any. But I will not be laying 14 points on against the best shooting team in the entire country. Like I said yesterday when I was filling out my bracket, Colgate is number 1 in the country in effective field goal percentage. They are the best shooting team in the entire country. They also don't turn the ball over either. 18th in turnovers per possession. Now, the issue why I don't think they can win is they can't force turnovers, and they're terrible at offensive rebounding. I think for big upsets to happen, you have to be able to create those extra scoring chance opportunities, and Colgate does not do that. But, once again, I will not be laying 14 points against the best shooting team in the country. I don't care what conference they come from. 14 points, I think it's 1 or 2 too many. I'll take Colgate +14 against Texas. Moving on, I'm going against my own rule with this one. This is the only Mountain West team I'll be betting on in the first round, in the round of 64. It is Boise State. It is Northwestern. Give me Boise State, the Broncos, -102 against Northwestern. Northwestern are the biggest frauds in the tournament. They suck. They do not deserve a number 7 seeding. Because they can't shoot. 320th in effective field goal percentage in the country. That's just ahead of teams like Georgia, South Carolina, Georgetown, jokes of their respective conferences. And then, Northwestern, 320th. Now, obviously, they are fantastic defensively. They did win games somehow during the regular season. 18th in defensive efficiency, but the Broncos can hang with them in that spot. They're very good defensively as well, coming in at 35th. So whatever the spread is, I wouldn't even bother. Just take Boise State to win outright. This is one game that the line has moved against me. Not by much, though. I got it at minus 102. It's now at plus 102. So go ahead and take that sweet, sweet plus money on the money line. Fade the Wildcats. They stumbled down the stretch, too. So already a team that I think is fraudulent. I'm just bringing up their end. I think they went 1-4 in their last 5 games. So they're not in good form. Their record's way better than their stats indicate. And yeah, 1-4 in their last 5 games. And those losses, a lot of them weren't even close. So yeah, they beat number 1 Purdue, which is insane. I don't know how that happened. Give me Boise State minus 102. And yeah, I guess of the 2 conferences that I think are shitty, I guess this kind of gives the edge to Mountain West. I think the Big Ten is even worse than the Mountain West. I don't know, at least in day one. In day one, I don't have the Big Ten winning a single game. We'll see if that changes in day 2, but day 1, as of right now, I have the Big Ten going like 0-5. Moving on, the next one is the other 1v16 game. It is Houston against Northern Kentucky. I laid the points with Kansas in the first one, and in this one, I will lay the points again. I will say I'm historically terrible at predicting the 1v16 games. I feel like I'm like 0-8 the last 2 years trying to predict 1v16 games, so these are the picks you might want to fade me. But I'll lay the points with Houston minus 19.5, a point lower than the spread in the Kansas game. I'm gonna back the Cougars because what they've done is cover big spreads for the majority of the year. They actually lead the country in average scoring margin. They're winning games by an average of 18.5 points, and the opponents they've been playing are much tougher than Northern Kentucky, the Norse. That average winning margin of plus 18.5 points, that's the most in the country by 4.7 points. Their defense is dominant, first in the country in defensive efficiency, third in opponent effective field goal percentage. That's going to be tough for Northern Kentucky to overcome. Considering the Norse are not a good shooting team to begin with, 218th in effective field goal percentage, playing against much worse teams all season. I think Houston's going to dominate the boards as well. 6th in the country in rebounding rate. Northern Kentucky comes in at 264th. But like I said, what this really comes down to is Houston is kind of, what they've done is beat the living shit out of teams all season. So why not do it again against the number 16 seed, against a team that is much weaker than the majority of teams they've played against this season. So give me Houston minus 19.5, and let's move on. Next up is Tennessee against Louisiana. And I'm going to back the big spread in this one as well. I will take Tennessee, the Volunteers, minus 10.5 against Louisiana. By the way, that Houston spread still sitting at minus 19.5, so no movement there. Tennessee, the spread has stayed at 10.5, so no move here as well. But just like Houston, and if you fill out my bracket, you know I have Tennessee and Houston facing off in the final. Houston and Tennessee, they are 1 and 2 in terms of defenses. You could argue which one is ahead of the other one, but just like Houston could arguably the best defense in the country, Tennessee is arguably the best defense in the country. Second defensive efficiency, second opponent effective field goal percentage. Louisiana is 169th and 179th against much weaker competition in those two stats. The Ragin' Cajuns played one ranked team all season. It was Texas, and they lost 100-72. 28-point loss to Texas. So for them to have any hope, they need to play at an A+ level. They need to hope Tennessee plays at like a C- level to have any kind of hope in this game. So I'm not going to bet on Louisiana to have an A+ game here. Also, I just talked about how Houston had the highest average scoring margin in the country. Well, it's Tennessee that's second in the country in average scoring margin. Another reason why I like those two teams to face off in the final. Plus 13.8. So they know how to cover big spreads. And Tennessee has been shooting relatively well, something they've struggled in throughout the season, and probably one reason why a lot of people are not going to pick them to win the national championship. But they've been hot with their shooting lately. At least over their last 3 games, they have an effective field goal percentage of 55%. So I like them in this spot. I think they stay hot. Like I said, I have them winning the national championship, so obviously I like them quite a bit this tournament as a whole. Their defense is dominant. I'll take them minus 10.5 against Louisiana. Next up, we have a SEC against Big Ten matchup. It is Texas A&M against Penn State, one of the more intriguing matchups of the first day. And as you might be able to guess by the trend of the day, I promise I didn't set out saying I was going to absolutely fade the Big Ten in every single spot. It has just unfortunately worked out that way. I need the Big Ten to just absolutely collapse in the first day. Texas A&M minus 2.5. I think the game comes down to what you want to back here. Do you want to back a good offense and bad defense, or a good defense and a bad offense? Because you have Penn State, who ranks near the top of the country in a lot of offensive stats, but their defensive stats are absolutely terrible. And then you have Texas A&M, who admittedly does not rank very high at all in a lot of offensive stats, but they're one of the better defensive teams in the country. I'm going to back the defensive team, and because the tiebreaker is my favorite stat, extra scoring chances per game, night and day between these two teams in that stat. Texas A&M 34th in the country, plus 3.6. Penn State 300th, minus 3. A big reason why is because the Aggies are 6th in offensive rebounding, 42nd in opponent turnovers. That is huge in a game with a small spread. What usually makes the difference if in a close game like this is what team commits fewer turnovers and what team gets more offensive rebounds. And based on the numbers, that team should be Texas A&M. Plus, I do think the SEC is a better conference than the Big Ten. And the line move has agreed with me on this one. I got to the 2.5. It's up to 3.5. I wouldn't bet it at higher than 3.5. That's my limit, actually. So if you're watching this now and you want to bet this game, if it's still minus 3.5, I would go with Texas A&M. If you go and it's at 4.5, if it moves another even half a point, I actually think I would flip things and bet on Penn State. So this is a close one. It depends on what line you're looking at when you go to bet this game. I got to the minus 2.5. I take Texas A&M at minus 3.5. Once it gets into the 4s or higher, the value switches, and I think the play is Penn State. I think their shooting gives them enough value at that number, but we will see. I got Texas A&M minus 2.5. I locked it in last night on Monday night. The final game of Thursday's slate here, it is UCLA against UNC Asheville. So I believe this is another, is it 2:15 or 3:14? I don't know, but regardless, I'm realizing I'm laying the points in a lot of games in the first day, and I'm not necessarily a big fan of that. But I got to treat each game as its own entity here. I'll take UCLA minus 17.5. I'm laying some big spreads. I'm laying a 20.5. I'm laying a 19.5. I'm laying a 10.5. I'm laying a 17.5. Scares me. But I do like UCLA in this matchup. I think this is a terrible stylistic matchup for UNC Asheville. UCLA gets the majority of their points down low, 25th in two-point shot rate. UNC Asheville, 134th in opponent two-point field goal percentage, and 56.2% of the points scored against UNC Asheville comes from two-point range. That's 335th in the country. So they can't defend down low. That's been their weakness all season. And, of course, my favorite stat, extra scoring chances per game. No team is better at it than UCLA, first in the country in extra scoring chances per game at plus 8.5. UNC Asheville, 317th, minus 3.2. So UCLA is going to force a ton of turnovers. They rank 10th in opponent turnovers per possession. UNC Asheville's 296th in turnovers per possession. They cough it up a ton. That's a terrible recipe for UNC Asheville. Also worth noting, UCLA is the 4th highest average scoring margin, so they can win with margin as well, plus 13.4. UNC Asheville, they played 2 decent teams this season. They lost to Arkansas by 34 points. They lost to Dayton by 23 points. So they're capable of losing pretty bad to some good teams. So I'll take the Bruins, who I think are going to go on a bit of a run here. I'll take the minus 17.5. I think I have UCLA in my Final Four, don't I? Potentially. So there you go. Those are my picks for the 15 available games for Thursday. I'll give them a pick out for Alabama on tomorrow's episode. I'll give out my pick for that, and then I'll give out my pick for the Friday games, the ones that are available. I'll be able to do it for most of them. Some of them I won't be able to because there are still going to be games tomorrow night that are going to be played. My bracket. I have completely switched the South region as I said yesterday I might. If anyone's interested, I no longer have Virginia making the Final Four. I have Virginia now losing in the Elite Eight in the Sweet 16 to Alabama. I also have Baylor now. Big switch. I got Baylor losing to UCSB in the first round. I will talk about that game tomorrow because that game is obviously a round of 64 game on Friday. So I will talk about Baylor UCSB on tomorrow's episode and why I switched that around. So I have Arizona and Alabama in the Elite Eight out of the South region, which is a complete change. Yesterday I had Virginia Baylor, and then I have Alabama winning. So now I have 2 number 1 seeds in the Final Four. My Final Four is now Alabama against Tennessee, with Tennessee winning, and Houston against UCLA, with Houston winning. So I got 2 1s, a 4, and a 2. A pretty chalky Final Four, I'm disappointed to say. But who knows? I still have time to change around my bracket, but I wanted to give you guys those updates in case you're following my bracket. Virginia, no longer have faith in them. I think Alabama's going to shoot the 3 ball all over them in the Sweet 16. So there you have it. This has been the Tuesday, March 14th episode of the Bacon Bets podcast. Please rate this, review this. Best of luck with all your bets in March Madness. I'll be back tomorrow morning with my best bets for the Friday round of 64 games. And then I will not have a show Thursday. And then Friday morning, I'll release my picks for the first round of 32 games. And then Saturday morning, I'll release my picks for the second round of the round of 32 games. Good luck. Gamble or bless. I'll talk to you all tomorrow.